Hey YouTube, it's Tom from the Deer and Donuts crew. Today I'm going to bring you a little video just about bows in general. So I got to thinking, I did the video about taking your bow to the bow shop and seeing some of the things that maybe need to be changed or fixed or whatever the case might be, but I never really talked to you guys about bows. Why do you need to take it to the bow shop if you don't have one to begin with, right? So what I want to talk to you about is just basically most of the parts of a bow. There's a lot of things that go into these. I don't have the time. The battery on my phone will die. You guys will get bored with me after a while. So we're going to try and keep it short. And we're going to talk about a couple main things. All right. We are going to point out a majority of the main features, but then we're going to really dive into what I think are probably the most customizable parts of your bow that you might change after you buy the bow. So you've decided that you want to become a bow hunter, but you don't have a bow yet. The first thing that I'm going to urge you to do is go to a pro shop. Now, if you've seen our stuff before, you know that we're not experts. A lot of the things that we talk to you about are personal experiences that we've had, things that we've learned, but I don't work on bows as a profession. This is a hobby of mine, and I do a couple things here and there, but if you really want to get somebody that knows what they're talking about, go to your local shop. Google them, you'll find them, or even like a Bass Pro Shop or a Cabela's can help you out. Now, that being said, when you go to a pro shop, they're gonna hook you up. They're gonna tell you what's best, they're gonna let you shoot a bunch of different bows, you're gonna get a feel for what you like, and you're gonna walk out of there with the best bang for your buck for what you're looking for. But that doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't things that we can look at before we go to have a rough idea of what we might want to buy. As I said, there are a lot of pieces of a bow. We're gonna touch on all of them, and then we're gonna go in depth on a couple of them. You can clearly see here, string, you've got your cable, you've got your cams up here. These cams are adjustable, so you've got some extra little screws that you can make some changes to. To go back to the string, you've got a D-loop here. This is where your release is gonna sit. You've got your peep sight here. There's a couple different kinds of peep sights. You've got your limbs. You've got bolts on the front side where you can adjust your draw weight. Since we've got it flipped around, let's take a look right here. Stabilizer, another piece of equipment that basically helps you with weight and trying to get your sight picture aligned at full draw. You've got your sight. This is one we're going to go into a little more in depth because there are a lot of different kinds of sights. Flip it back around, we've got our rest. This is another one we're going to go into. But then, basically the body of your bow, your grip right here, little wrist strap to keep the bow attached to you. There's some different shooting techniques that this comes into play with. Again, a lot of different pieces. Quiver, which you can probably see my arrows on over here, but I didn't really get into that. The main focus of what I want to talk about is your cams, your sight, and your rest. So one of the big features that we talked about was cams. Now, cams, limbs, your string, they all sort of tie in together. But the big portion that we want to look at, and again, not an expert, just going to touch on this stuff because this is the kind of stuff that if you go to the pro shop, they're probably going to set you up with without you really even realizing that they're setting you up with it. But a couple things that we look at: axle to axle distance. Most hunting bows fall within the 30 to 33 inch range. They're a little bit shorter in comparison to like competitive archery bows. And the reason that we look at that particular length is maneuverable. If you're in a tree stand or in a ground blind, you don't necessarily have a ton of room to move, so the shorter bows help you with that. The second big thing is brace height. Well, brace height is measured here from the deepest part of your grip to the back of your string. Most of these on a hunting bow average about 6 to 7 inches. Again, the main difference is kind of speed and smoothness, I guess, is a way that we can talk about it. So when you get into the consideration for brace height, the shorter brace heights, the closer distance that you have here. These make it faster. Your arrow will come out faster. The difference is that your draw is longer, so maybe it's a little less smooth. If you have a longer section, you're getting a little bit more forgiveness, I guess we can call it. Your drawback isn't as far, the string doesn't have as far to move, so there's less things that can interfere with it. Again, these are things that if you go to the bow shop and you ask them about, they're gonna be able to explain it to you for probably the entire day. But just have an idea that brace height, your distance here, and your axle to axle distance on your bow can have a big impact for your speed, even how the bow releases and where you have to hold it and some other things like that, so you're not catching your arm when it's coming through. So now that we've talked about cams a little bit and brace height and all that important stuff, let's get into a couple of the things that you're going to be able to customize yourself, either while you're at the shop, additional purchase, or maybe it comes stock on it, or down the road, something you decide that you want to change up. First one is going to be your rest right here. Rest is very important because this is the last point of contact for your arrow. It's also the part that keeps your arrow aligned right before you release it. There's a couple different kinds. As you can see here, I have a containment rest, which is a whisker biscuit. Whisker biscuits are nice because your arrow is held in there very tight. You don't have the chance of it falling off. There are older rests that were called launcher rests that did have that issue. They're basically just 2 points of contact. Your arrow could fall off of them and then you have to let off, adjust your arrow. You've made some noise. You're probably scared off whatever you're looking at, and it just unfortunately kind of waste of time if that happens. You don't get that with this. The downfall of the whisker biscuit though is as you can see here, there's a lot to touch. Anytime that you let your arrow go, your fletchings and arrow are always touching this, which can cause some inconsistencies. Now the other type of rest that is probably the higher end model, that's gonna be what's called a drop away rest. And what the drop away rest essentially does is when you draw your bow, the rest comes up. It is contained, so it's like this where it won't fall out, but it's a little bit different style. And basically what it does is when you draw your bow back, the rest comes up, holds your arrow. When you release, it immediately drops away, meaning that there's nothing touching your arrow after it comes out. Keeps those inconsistencies from happening that you might get with a whisker biscuit. So, a couple different things to look into. Now the final piece of the puzzle, at least for this video, is gonna be your sight. Now, there's a couple different features on sights I'm just gonna talk about in general really quick. A bubble level that you can see here lets you know if your bow is centered left and right, very helpful. This little knob up here is a light. Once you get into the darker hours at night or early mornings, having the ability to light up your pins is very crucial so that you can see a little bit better what you're getting yourself into. Now, there's two main types of sights. You see here, multi-pin, which is what I have. Essentially, I go out, and I think I just adjusted that on accident. I go out and I adjust this top one to say 20, middle one to 30, bottom one of the group here to 40. Don't worry about this guy.
How about that little fella?
Oh, that little guy. I wouldn't worry about that little guy.
And these are my set distances that I have pins designated for. The other type of pin is a single pin, or the other type of sight, pardon me, is a single pin. You have one pin and you adjust the distance with something that is most commonly referred to as sight tape. So you're gonna have to imagine it with me here, but basically you have a wheel with yardages varying depending on what you get. But when you wanna take a shot, you hit your rangefinder, you find out you're 34 yards away, you adjust your tape to 34 yards away, it adjusts your single pin, and you're ready to go. You don't have to maneuver between 2 or 3 different pins depending on what kind of shot you're taking. Now, the downfall of that is if your target is moving forward towards you or away from you, You may either have to adjust manually by up and down your aim point, or you're gonna have to release your arrow, bring it back down and make your adjustments on your tape. You don't necessarily have to do that with a multi-pin. If it starts to walk 5 or 6 or 7 yards away, you can adjust to a different pin, but you don't have the customization on a multi-pin that you would have on the single pin with the sight tape. I would like to go to that single pin sight tape. You might see that later this year or next year, but for right now, we've been hanging tough with the multi-pin setup. So there you have my expert opinion on bows. Not all bows. You could literally talk about bows for days. There's so many intricate details and parts of them that I didn't even cover. Your peep sight, your D-loop, the stabilizer, all this stuff is interchangeable on pretty much every single bow, and it all has a very, very important part that it plays in the bow. If you're new to it, I hope that at least this video is going to give you a couple little things that you can look for, or maybe read up on, or just recognize when you walk into the shop and have a better idea of what the sight is, or what your rest looks like and what it does, or why maybe one bow is longer or further back than the other. All we're trying to do out here is just give you guys a little bit extra to take to whatever it is that you're doing, the shop, the woods, your backyard, and just have a better idea and feel more comfortable with what you're doing. So if you like the video, do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe, comment, come back for the next ones. I'm Tom with Deer and Donuts. Take care.